All right, let's talk about how fair the Chiefs' contract offer to Orlando Brown Jr. really was. Mecole Hardman responding on Twitter to someone who said he will never have a breakout year. And then let's actually explore the possibilities that Mecole Hardman could very well have a great year and much freaking more. But first, how about those? Hey, don't mind me. I'm just drinking cold brew out of this new coffee cup. That'll be available for sale soon. What's up, guys? My name is Cole, aka the Redbeard Chief of Staff, or sometimes known as the Rant and Raven Red Ranger, and I do daily news about the Kansas City Chiefs, so make sure to sub if you have not yet, because this season is going to be a wild ride. I'm talking more wild than Russell Wilson himself yelling, "Let's ride! Let's ride!" And hit that like button if you would like a beard hair mailed to your house. And let's get into this video starting with a wee bit of player news from their social media channels. The weather from Chiefs training camp is going to be extremely hot, and it has Juan Thornhill absolutely shook up about it, as well as I'm sure the rest of the team. CEH is going crazy, slapping people awake, then making them load up these weapons, put them in a tank, and drive him around like he's preparing for World War III or something like that happening on our very own soil. I'm not 100% sure where he is, but this guy knows how to have a good time. I'll tell you that much right now. Cornell Powell and his foundation teamed up with Big Brothers Big Sisters KC for a surprise appearance at the bowling pin decorating party, and the pins will be used as trophies for the winning teams at the Summer Bowl for Kids' Sake celebration. So very nice to Cornell Powell for partnering up with a great organization like BBBSKC. It also looks like Omar Bayless had his second annual back-to-school backpack giveaway in Laurel, Mississippi. So that's cool and worth noting as well. And then it looks like Juju had his kids camp, in which a bunch of them came out to sit down and stare at screens with a controller in their hand because it was a video game camp. But hey, at least he made them stretch, warm up, and do jumping jacks prior to all of that, so that's good. Seriously though, it looked like a lot of fun and threw me back, reminding me of the Halo 2 LAN parties that I used to attend back in my day before playing consoles online was much of a thing.
Francis, calm down.
No!
All right, guys, I know I said I was probably done talking about Orlando Brown Jr. news, but listen, I freaking lied. Well, unintentionally lied. You see, it's the absolute heart of the offseason, literally the slowest part of Chiefs news of the entire year. So when digging for Chiefs news this morning, Orlando is still a large topic of conversation that took me down a rabbit hole where I discovered a few tweets from the founder of Over the Cap on Orlando Brown Jr.'s contract that is definitely worth talking about. So I want to look at his response to the contract that the Chiefs offered, or the details that did surface, because he seems to think it was a pretty fair offer. And to recap, the offer the Chiefs made Orlando was roughly $91 to $95 million, depending on whose tweet you looked at, and that was over the first 5 years, with the 6th year having 40+ million thrown into it to inflate the yearly average, and was never going to be paid to Orlando, might I add. Well, here's Jason from Over the Cap's comments upon learning about what was offered to Orlando. He said this: "Yeah, that would be in line with what the Chiefs were likely anticipating paying Orlando when they traded for him. An APY of around $18 million per year, the Colton Miller, Garrett Bowles range. Teams that have great QBs don't have to overextend themselves when there is that kind of money gap, financial gap, gold coin gap. So the Chiefs offered Orlando a contract based on his performance after all, not on projected upside. Smart move by Brett Veach." Jason then says this about Brown's total APY that was offered: "Unless you are a top-of-the-line player, that was the market, roughly $18 to $19 million per year average. The 20+ million average number has only been hit by 3 players, Trent Williams, David Bakhtiari, and Laramie Tunsil, and then 9 are being paid between $15 and $18.5 million per year. So what the Chiefs offered was above average pay. If 9 tackles are between $15 and $18.5 million per year, Orlando was offered right around that 18.5 mark. So the numbers say this: the Chiefs believe Orlando is an above average player, but not elite. And Jason actually has something interesting to say on that note. He says, "For what it's worth, an offer of $18 million per year is kind of showing you that the Chiefs either don't consider him to be a great player, or they don't value him to be a necessity. Whoa. He then says, I think if you didn't get a deal done here, the plan is to either go year to year with end of career type vets or explore trades with teams that are going in a different direction with their tackles. I'd imagine the breakdown for the Chiefs and Brown would likely be over guarantees. There's a huge gap between top player and second player there, and how they get to $23 million APY. All things considered, I think it's the right move for KC not to do that kind of contract. All right, so Jason says the Chiefs may not value Orlando as much as people think they do, which is kind of wild considering he's left tackle. Then he says they made the right move and not overextending themselves in the negotiations with Orlando, and then says that he does not think the Chiefs will get a deal with Orlando done next year either, and will either explore a trade or vet option. And did y'all notice he didn't mention the draft? That's because the best left tackles go quickly in the draft, as it's a position of high value. And based on the fact that the Chiefs typically play pretty freaking well every freaking year, they normally have a very late first round pick and miss out on the top guys. So I'm not saying the Chiefs couldn't draft a future left tackle. It just may not be one of the top guys, but we know Brett Veach and his guys are pretty good about finding talent in the later rounds. But yeah, the left tackles go fast. So anyway, there you have it. We got into the weeds a bit here, but this is just further confirmation that the Chiefs made the right move, though it does leave questions and a cause for concern on the left tackle position for future seasons. What are they going to do? Because it doesn't look like Orlando Brown Jr. will be staying long term. Crazier things have happened though, so we will have to wait and see. For now though, Orlando is going to play on the tag and will be the guy. But the question is definitely still, when will this man sign the tag? Considering he's only made around $3.4 million in his first year so far in the NFL, you would think he would sign the tag sooner rather than later to get the most out of that $16.6 million guarantee. I mean, that's a lot of gold coins to make in 1 year, considering in previous years so far, he's made an average of $872,000 per season up until now. Josina Anderson had this to say about Orlando and him signing his tag, basically saying, Orlando is currently still weighing all options with respect to his decision on whether or not to report to Chiefs training camp per league source. So yeah, we may not see him for training camp, especially considering it's going to be like 105 degrees, but I can't see Orlando holding out until deep into the season. I think he has until week 10 to sign, and here's the reasons why I don't think he's going to wait until deep in the season. A, this man has played left tackle for 1.5 years and really needs to prove himself to land another large deal. I said that yesterday. And B, if he sits out like that, he's going to leave a ton of money on the table if he holds out. Anyway, upon further review, I definitely think the Chiefs made the right decision in what was allegedly offered to Orlando Brown Jr.
Oh, somehow they missed him. He dives. Great job by Bell on the block.
Mecole Hardman. What comes to your mind when I say that name? He's definitely an interesting conversation piece depending on who you talk to. Every year that I can remember since Mecole was drafted in 2019, people have asked the same question. Is this Mecole Hardman's year? Will he go off? Well, this is the question we're going to look at today because somebody made a video attempting to answer this question, and not only was it pretty much trash, but Mecole saw it and responded to it as well. So first, let's look at this man's video and then have a fireside chat about it.
How many times is this going to be the year that Mecole Hardman breaks out? This isn't the year. This is a guy who is supposedly this great deep threat, and yet he only saw 13 deep targets last year, and his average depth of target was just 7.5 yards. That was with Patrick Mahomes at quarterback. Hardman played just 53.5% of the snaps last year, and sure, I know Tyreek Hill was there, but they had no other wide receivers. Why wasn't he on the field more? And yeah, now Hill's gone, but they've got so many other weapons to compete with this year. Travis Kelce, Juju, Marcus Valdes-Scantling, the rookie Sky Moore. 2 years ago wasn't the year, last year wasn't the year, this year's not the year, it's never going to be the year.
So this man, green screen man, looks at a few stats and declares not only is Mecole Hardman not that guy, but he will never be that guy and therefore will not have a breakout year this year or ever. All right, well, listen here, bud. You got to do a bit more than look at a couple stats, then triumphantly declare that Mecole Hardman will basically never amount to anything. He's been behind Hill and Kelce his entire career, and last year still had nearly 700 yards receiving, you little dingleberry. And to be clear, I am no Hardman apologist, but The video you made seems like you're trying to get views, which is working since I'm talking about it, rather than proper analysis based on situational context. Context is key. But I know you made a TikTok video and you didn't have time to get in the weeds and all that, but trust me, I do have the time, so here we freaking go. Looking at average depth per target is a bit deceiving, as well as the amount of deep balls thrown his way because of how defenses played KC last year. The Chiefs were forced to adapt to the too-high shell and make smaller plays down the field, which affected stats like this for pretty much every receiver on the roster. On top of that, Mecole was used a lot in the short passing game via bubble screens and other quick routes to get the ball into his hands ASAP so that he could utilize his speed to quickly zip down the field. So now that we have the context that this green screen man was clearly missing, let's look at Mecole's response to this video. Mecole saw it, then simply shared the video and said, "Dang, this dude knows what he's talking about." And if you put the correct amount of sarcasm into it, he basically said this: "Dang, this guy knows what he's talking about," aka this guy has zero clue what he's talking about and is absolutely lost in the sauce with this cute little green screen video. Hardman was not impressed, and neither am I. So what I want to do is dig in a bit here and look to answer the question of, could this be Mecole Hardman's breakout year, or is green screen man right that Mecole will never be that guy? Well, if we look at Hardman's career NFL stats, every year since he's been drafted, his targets, receptions, and total yards have all increased. Yes, so it would appear to me that he's being involved more, and Mahomes is definitely looking his way more on average, which is a good sign. But how does Mecole's 2021 season compare to other receivers on the team? Well, in the regular season, Mecole was third in total receiving yards, only behind Hill and Kelsey, with a total of 59 receptions for 693 yards and 2 TDs with an average of 11.8 yards per reception, which was actually a bit higher of an average than Hill per reception, believe it or not. Mecole also had 8 rushes for 46 yards, which was an average of 5.8 yards per attempt, for what that is worth. Mecole also had a decent postseason, totaling 4th in receiving yards, only behind Kelsey, Hill, and McKinnon, with 8 receptions for 121 yards and a TD, and also was 4th in total rushing yards. He had 6 rushes for 55 yards and a TD, so yay, lots of stats. But what I see here in all of this is, outside of Tyreek, Mecole was the second most looked at and productive receiver, if you don't count Kelsey as a receiver. He was basically wide receiver 3 for all intents and purposes if you do factor in Kelsey, yet still had nearly 700 total yards. That's really not that bad, honestly, when you look at the big picture of him being behind Kelsey and Tyreek Hill. But is all this enough for Mecole to break 1,000 yards this season and be that guy? Well, here's what I'm not going to do. I'm not going to matter-of-factly declare that it will not be his year like green screen guy, but I will go ahead and give some thoughts on why he very well could be. Mecole has been there. He knows the playbook the best out of everybody, because he's the longest tenured receiver on the team who has years of trust and rapport with Mahomes. I know that there were times last season when Mahomes and Hardman didn't connect on passes due to miscommunication, which, if I had to pin it on someone, I would ultimately put it on Hardman. But he still has a lot going for him here, on top of the fact that Tyreek Hill is now gone, and Mecole is going to be used in some of the ways that Tyreek Hill was. Not because Mecole is Tyreek Hill, we all know he's not, but because he's fast. Tyreek's 40 time was a 4.29, while Mecole's was 4.33. So yes, Tyreek is faster, but Mecole is still a very quick man and can outrun many on the defensive side of the ball, no doubt about it. So there's some of the positives. He has the tenure, experience, rapport with Mahomes, and some traits like speed that'll earn him the nod to fill in for Tyreek as he's able. Again, he's not Tyreek Hill. We know that. But I don't want to negate the fact either that Green Screen Man said that the Chiefs have some other good receivers as well. Of course, the Chiefs' true #1 receiver is still Kelsey. Then they brought in the Dash brothers, Juju Smith-Schuster and Marquez Valdez-Scantling, and they drafted Sky Moore. The room is going to be competitive, which is a good thing, and I think because of that, stats may be more spread out as far as receivers getting yards than we think. I'm currently leaning in this direction to answer the question of what we're even talking about. I think Kelsey's going to lead in receiving yards, followed by Juju, then MVS and Mecole, why I'm doing this, in a very close race for third. I could very well be wrong, though, and Mecole could edge out both Juju and MVS in total yards, just like he edged out everyone else, aside from Hill and Kelsey last season. Again, he knows the playbook, which is very complex, because it's Andy Reid, and he is a genius. So, will Mecole break out this year, be wide receiver 1, have 1,000+ yards? I'm not 100% sure, but he certainly has many factors going in his favor, plus the traits, mainly his speed, along with the QB and Patrick Mahomes, offensive genius-minded Andy Reid, and the offensive scheme to be able to do so, and like Mahomes to Mecole many times this season. Here's where I want to pass the question off to y'all. Do you think Green Screen Guy is right, and Mecole simply is not that guy, meaning he won't have a breakout season this year or any year in the future? Or do you lean a bit more optimistic like me and say, yes, he very well could break out, but I'm not 100% sure? Or you could be in the Mecole camp 100% diehard saying, I know he's going to break 1,000 yards and be wide receiver 1, no cap, no doubt. Let me know your thoughts, which way you are leaning in the comments down below, and we can certainly have a row about it down there. And make sure to leave a bearded comment or a super thanks to potentially be featured in an upcoming vid. Sub for more news like this, blah, blah, blah. And then check out this video here, which is a video full of Mahomes highlights from last season. It's like 18 minutes long and it's glorious. And until next time, let's go. Let's freaking go. How about those?